Well, it's noon on May the 8th, 2023, and this is Lunch and Learn Code Updates by the HVACR Licensing Program and the HVACR Association. We welcome you to another monthly issue of Lunch and Learn. During the program, we always have Tony Woodard, who is the Chief Mechanical Inspector for the state, and we appreciate him and the Department of Labor and Licensing so much. And I will repeat again, this is an anomaly among associations and regulatory agencies across the country in that Arkansas is leading the way. Tony, welcome to another Lunch and Learn.
Good to be here, Tom.
We're going to be talking about notches and holes. Oh my, notches and holes. Oh my, there's so many details to see in this. And it's so important because you can sure get your backside in a crack if you don't know what you're doing.
Especially on those structural panels. That's right.
First off, we're going to be talking about the protection of the structure, which comes from section 302 out of the mechanical code. And this right here, Tony, we'll just read real quick and then get into some pictures. You want to read that for us?
You bet. The notches on the ends of the joist shall not exceed 1/4 the joist depth. Hose board and joist shall not be within 2 inches of the top and bottom of the joist, high and low, so you don't weaken it. And the diameter of such hose shall not exceed 1/3 of the depth of the joist. Notches in the top or bottom of the joist shall not exceed 1/6. Well, and there's a lot of those joists that you won't even do the top and the bottom. So that, it depends on the type of joist they're using.
Well, you know, and having heard you read that, I don't have a clue what it's saying. So let's go to some pictures.
Okay. So, right. All right. So that picture, there's some made that way, and then there's some what people need to picture in their mind. At the top where that area is a 2x2 with a groove in the middle of it, and this is 5/8 OSB in the middle to a 2x2 on the bottom. So some of them won't allow you to, the 2x2 style won't. You can't notch where the pictorial showing there. You will only be allowed to notch in the middle, which the further slides will get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this picture is really relevant to dimension lumber only.
That one is. Or,
yeah.
Well, they make the LVLs now that are basically, you can take 4 pieces of the 3/4 inch plywood and they glue it together.
Yeah.
They allow a little bit of this, but per their instructions again.
If it works out, I'll tell you a horror story that I had to live through. That's exactly what you were talking about there. But they need to remember there's no notching in the middle 1/3. You can only do it on the first and the last end of that joist there. And there are specific examples of how deep you can go. Where it says D divided by 4, that means if you've got a 10-inch there, you can only go down 2.5 inches. It's 10 divided by 4. Here we are where we're talking about notching over in the middle, not just over on the ends.
Right. And this would be that nominal lumber, the one you're talking about, not that I joist. This one would allow that. And you've got to get that distance away from the end, not to weaken it, not get in the middle to weaken it. I mean, they give nice pictures. The ones I've been seeing, they show a nice picture. They show the footage in inches. They break it down and make it simple. And they'll give you, I've even seen the little decal pattern or templates you hold up there that show you exactly where to do that at.
Well, you know, not everybody that notches ought to be notching. I'll go to the next slide before I tell you my tale of woe.
Now, this would be one of what they're showing you. I mean, typically on nominal wood, we don't do that. That's going to be that panel I'm talking about, that 2x2 with the OSB. And this is where they can cut out. And some of them will allow up to an 8-inch so that you see them penetrate flex duct or some small branch runs, 5 and 6 inch, because by the time you wrap your 6-inch pipe, you're around 8 inches going through there, but you can't be close to the end, the middle. And man, sawzalls seem to get out of hand real quick.
Oh, is that ever true? So let's see, if you've got a 12-inch here, I'm going to use 12-inch.
12-inch.
The math is easier. Your diameter cannot be larger than 4.
4. Yeah. So, and you see a lot of the 14-inch panels. So you get, you don't have a lot of room in there.
No.
They'll squeeze that flex duct in there and tell me, well, I couldn't cut it any larger than that. Well, that's telling you can't put that in there. They just shrink it down go from 8-inch down to 2-inch and back up and go, it magically fixes itself. No, it doesn't.
No, I am convinced that we have got to start holding the line on what we know we've got to do as a professional trade. We've allowed other trades to dictate to us what we did. We always deferred to other people. And we got to quit that. We got to take a leadership role. This is what code requires, and this is all we're going to do.
That's correct.
All right.
Oh, in exterior walls, bearing partitions, a wood stud shall not be cut or notched in excess of 25%. Think about it, 25%. That's not very much. In non-bearing partitions, other than loads, they can go as 40%.
Yeah.
And I think you've got a nice illustration that'll show what we're talking about. So this is the stud we're talking about where normally you'll see that. Plumbers are great with this. I mean, they have their hose saws and they're boring. If they're running their happy, they do a real good job centering that up and going through that. And I'm having to actually say that as an HVAC guy, the plumbers have this down. We as HVAC folks, we like to take the saws on the outside and cut a big moon pie out of that thing and think the nail guard's going to support it. No, it is not.
All right, let's look at this. Stud holes.
So
here we go, stud notches. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah, here's where you'll see them notch out a little and then put the little nail guard, the one they hold with their hammer, and nail that over there across that, protect it. Line sets and drain lines. I've seen some folks do some drain lines through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be about it. Don't put the line set, don't put the drain line and the line set all in one, separate them. And you'll have the room to do that with. You're trying to put the width of too much depthness of that in what you're allowed to cut that, the length of that, the depth of it.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between a load bearing and a non-bearing load allowable notch there.
So your exterior wall, let's make it simple, is load bearing.
Yeah.
So where you're going out there with that line set and go through. Now, if you're just going right straight through, but the structural support, the stud is load bearing on the top plate. So cutting all that out, I've got pictures where they cut them completely out. Well, you're going to show some nice pictures, I think, later.
Yeah, let's see.
Not as far as studs go, but
yeah, we're about to look at a top plate here. There we go. Here's an exterior top plate.
So your top plate's how wide? 3.5 inches typically. So you have to have at least 1.5 inches of that left. So you're cutting in more than 50% of that stud, and you need to think about that. You're cutting more than 50%. Then you get the approved 16 gauge. Now that's a 16 gauge nail guard, not little bitty aluminum. That's got to be an approved nail guard to go in there to structurally support that and stop the penetrating of the nails.
Yeah.
Our number one thing we're seeing is the line set. They come out, but this is a very good picture. So if you're a contractor, you need to picture in your head that 1.5 inches going all the way down that wall and not letting that line set bow and get up against that OSB decking. They put a nail through that, you're liable, not the guy on the outside. You have to keep the 1.5 inches all the way down.
I don't think it would be nearly as often, but for example, if you happen to have a kitchen exhaust, not a kitchen, I'm sorry, but a dryer exhaust, and you're at 4 inches and you got a 6-inch wall there, and that wall be load bearing, which probably wouldn't be, but should it be, the same thing's going to apply to you there.
It is. Take that sucker right straight out the wall. Don't go vertical in that area situation or that scenario. I've seen it. I have seen what you're saying, where it was a 6-inch exterior wall and they decided to go vertical through that and totally destroyed the top plate. Just destroyed it all the way around.
Again, in fact, Tony, let's stop here just for a minute. I know that all of our contractors think that the world has just about come to an end and gone crazy in 2023. From an inspection standpoint, what are you seeing is happening in 2023 that is just driving you crazy? I know it is driving our dealers.
What we're seeing is patience is number one. Folks are everyone seems to be just on edge with everything. And they're having trouble getting equipment. The equipment prices have gone through the roof. The time frame that they're wanting to give these contractors to complete a job, they're shortening that. We have to stop, take a breath, and do what you said. We've got to explain to people, we're professionals in this field. This is the amount of time it's going to take. This is what we have to do. And everyone has to allow the contractor the clearance, the time, and material to do the job they need to do. And that's what we're seeing. It's rough out there right now, Tom. And it's not just in our world. I'm seeing it everywhere. You can go to Dollar General, you can go pumping gas. Everybody's on edge. And it rightly should be. When we turn our news on and every day we see somebody being mowed down just anywhere, it's kind of put everybody on edge, and it leads into your trade, your profession, whatever you're doing. And it's clearly in our contractors deal that it's a tough, hard job to do. They look at us like we're ripping them off. We're not ripping them off. Our prices of making our profit have not gone up. The material's gone through the roof. We're still doing the same hard work for pretty much the same pay. It's tough. It really is.
Well, something you just said there, I'm going to make an acronym out of it and start using it. And that's CTM, clearance, time, and material. Yeah. That is really a good way to talk about the situation that we find ourselves in these days.
And it's clearance. The number one thing is the clearance, which if we break down the whole scope of everything, they're not giving them the room to do the job.
Yeah. So that takes us to 302.3.4, where it says, don't you be cutting, notching, and boring holes in these trusses unless it is specifically permitted by the manufacturer.
Or the professional engineer, correct. Yeah. And that's a stamp drawing. Now, that would be a stamp drawing of a pictorial that says this is how you do this.
Yeah. Same thing here with trusses. Let me tell you my horror story. I was building a house over in Jacksonville, and the electrician saw my trusses there, and it was the one that's got the 2.5-inch top and bottom and flake board in the middle, and he decided he didn't want to drill it. So he saw a little indent, and he got him a hammer and said, you're just supposed to knock a hole right here. So by the time he was finished, he had ripped out so much of that, knocked it all out, and the inspector came up, and of course, he wasn't going to pass anything. And it took 2 or 3 weeks to get approval from the manufacturer's engineer on how we would solve it. And just exactly what you said, 2 3/4-inch pieces of plywood on both sides, and they had to be about 4 feet long or so. But we that was my little horror story on what it took me in terms of time and money to fix that, because they thought they knew what they were doing, but they did not know. Okay, here is the funny part. Why are we talking about notches and holes? That ought to be pretty simple. Well, here's a picture. You talk about it, Tony.
Okay, so anybody that's eat at your local Subway or Jimmy John's, just picture you a standard 100-foot long strip mall that one side's got a nail salon, one side might be an insurance agency, and the end might be a Subway. Picture that little metal building. These horizontal purlins are your roof. This entire assembly is based off the angle red iron tied to the purlins running to support the roof. And they put RTU on there and cut the entire support of the roof out. Now, that was some serious cutting times 4. Now, you got to understand there are 4 RTU, 4 different occupancies. 4 times this happened, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. I don't know how many saw blades were used. I don't know the time frame it took to do this, but the roof was sponging just trying to walk off of it. Whoa. This is horrendous. This was a way up there on my Hall of Shame fame board.
That's one of the prettiest cuts I ever saw.
That was probably the first one, because you can see when he's getting tired.
I look at that and thought, I don't understand how he did such a pretty cut just so he could come back and don't tell him what it's going to cost him to fix this.
No. So, it ruined the roof. So I have seen several emails. The design professionals are emailing until we get, I haven't seen the picked one, which picked one's going to be what they're paying for. I have seen a approved design. My question was, all right, now I need to know pounds per square. I need to know the load value. Now let's take back it. Now we got to take snow load back on top of that RTU sitting on the curb, not just the snow load. I need to know what snow load can mount on top of that RTU, because this is in Bentonville Rogers where we get a lot of snow. You can get, if that package unit is only being utilized for the cool mode in the summertime and not the gas, that's it. You can get a foot of snow on top of that 4x4 square RTU. You've added another 200 pounds on just each RTU. So yeah, I mean, this, like I said, this was times 4.
Tony, I've just, my gut's just been wrenching ever since I saw this, because I'm thinking about the little guy who, gets a chance to go commercial, and he's doing 1 or 2 or 3 of these, and he's under that $50,000 thing that you got to have to be a commercial contractor. And he's just excited about, he's going to start doing this. This is going to be his future. And he doesn't know what he's doing, which is nothing wrong with not knowing what you're doing, but you ought not do what you don't know. Anyway, my point is, and then he does this. And frankly, Tony, I don't know if this would be covered by general liability or if this would be a completed operations coverage, but I
think this is full-blown contractor's insurance. This is replacement cost. This is going to dig into theirs, because they're going to have to do the corrected fix, tested, approved, engineered, design fix to go back and then get it approved. And then of course we'll be there with the city once it's corrected. But I just don't know. I keep seeing that picture where I'm standing out on a limb and I'm reaching back and cutting a limb off between me and the trunk of the tree. I can't get that out of my head. I'm just like, what, man?
Yeah, I want all of our guys who are, for the most part, they're good guys, but they just kind of reach out there sometimes and go beyond their level of experience, and they don't ask. And the next thing you know, they're in a mess like this. And, I mean, this could put you into bankruptcy.
It absolutely could. And I really believe this is when you get so busy, somebody needs to be behind making sure that this individual who I sent to do this is truly competent in knowing, how do we set an RTU? How do we set our curb? How do we cut into a structure? And it got just, man had a square duct this way, he had a square duct that way. Well, up on the roof, I'm going to cut this L. And he just did cutting. And that's what we had.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I hurt for him, because I've been in situations where I never did anything quite like this. I never did.
That right there got their skin left on the job on that side. That got down in there, and man, that bit back on that one.
No, that, as you said, that sawzall kind of got crazy right there.
Yeah. Even your grind. I mean, there's blood left after that one. That one, that's rough.
Oh, I feel for him. Oh my goodness alive, I sure do. See if we can get on to our next slide here. Yeah, right here, Tony, in our two sessions ago, we talked about how to run the vent pipe from a bathroom. And back then we were talking about this line right across here, that it had to be metal. And we talked about that, but now that's changed since we last met, and it's more like this now, ain't it?
Yeah, so I guess that could be, I'll own that. That's a miscommunication on my part. So if everybody's looking at this and you see the little wiggly line, that's your indication of your insulation level. And that vent duct is always visible. Once he makes the hard 90, that must be metal. That's correct. Then if you can get to the soffit where you start to come down, here's your magic number, 14 feet. Flex connector, you can use a class 1 approved flex connector above that to where it won't get smashed down, and it's always readily visible. Then you could carry that out to the metal transition kit, which is metal. That will be metal at that point. 14 foot your length though. We saw some, they were running them 25 feet. That's not flexible duct. Flexible duct, if it's installed per ADC, can go that far. this is a flex connector. You have a maximum, as the red indicates right there, 14 feet. I want to make that clear because I don't think after the core of this past week, I was hearing some discussion and I kind of had to, oh, no, it's 14 feet, guys. It's not as long as you can run it and run it properly. It's 14 foot.
And then the other thing that came up, and this was in our last lunch and learn, it was just mentioned, but the board has met and made a alternative compliance on duct.
They did. The board approved by our engineers. Matter of fact, Kim Cook made the motion. It was approved as an alternative testing, the performance test of the duct leakage test. Now, the state stance on this, which is ADLL, if the test passes, we're not looking for the visual mastic inspection. You can use the good fallback tape. If it passes, Bobby did show some folks how if you're up there watching that, make sure the proper rings are in the machine when the testing's done so it's not manipulated. But if it passes a correct test, we accept that. We will accept that without having to do a visual mastic testing. Now, if you're going to be more stringent in your town with as far as an inspection team and you want the mastic, you have all right to do so. But you're getting a test, if it is performed accurately, you're getting a system, a whole system that your eyes can't tell you what you're seeing. So the performance-based test is the better way to go all the way around. But again, they can do the mastic visual inspection and require the mastic.
One of the things that I really appreciate the board doing this for is that we just in the month of March and April trained 188 people to be able to do duct testing. And a lot of them had gone out and already bought their equipment. So they're going to be able to get a good use of that equipment. And more importantly than a good use of that equipment is that the homeowner is going to get a lot tighter duct system and save money and be more comfortable.
That's their energy savings, right? And that's what you want. And for those inspectors that were at training this year, they got to see Bobby and his little gadget. He can prove to you your cost. The home builders don't want to go R8, but he can prove to you it pays for itself. It's like our new insulated windows, they pay for themselves. Yeah. The insulation, I mean, it is pay that on the front end and it pays for it years down the road.
Well, that is so true. And I understand people that look at just a straight across the board cost difference per square foot and automatically assume that paying more is prohibitive. But when you break it out, like Bobby Parks was able to explain to those inspectors, it makes all the sense in the world to pay a few dollars up front. And actually, in his example, the total cost of installation went down about $100.
It went down.
Yeah.
Because you were able to cut money on other things, correct?
Well, folks, we really appreciate you guys tuning in today. It's been Lunch and Learn here today on May the 8th. We'll see you again on Monday, June the 12th. And we'll pick a topic that Tony sees is really important across the state. He had seen these problems with notching and boring holes, and especially that one poor fella that got beside himself and started cutting, just cutting out complete purlins. We wish him the best and hope to goodness that he's able to survive it. I'm not sure how. We do wish him the best. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Tony, as always, we thank you. We thank Lindsay. We thank all of our state inspectors, all of our municipal inspectors across the state, because it is a partnership between inspection and contractors and all the guys that are out there working, trying to help homeowners to have low utility bills and very comfortable, safe homes. We'll see you in June, Tony.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot, Tom.